1458am and DAB, smart speaker, mobile app and LeicaRadio.com.
This is Leica Radio.
From the Sky News Centre at 9. The Foreign Secretary has defended Boris Johnson after Labour reported him to the parliamentary watchdog to investigate whether he broke the rules for MPs. It follows allegations BBC Chairman Richard Sharp helped the former Prime Minister to arrange a guarantee on an £800,000 loan just weeks before he was selected for his current job. Boris Johnson's rubbished the claims. James Cleverly says as far as he can see, Mr Sharp's appointment was made on his merits.
The appointment clearly is one that requires someone of huge experience. Richard has that experience, and therefore, if he says that there's no conflict of interest, so there's nothing wrong with that.
World-famous entertainers will perform at Windsor Castle as part of a weekend of celebrations to mark the King's coronation. There'll be processions to and from Westminster Abbey, ending with a balcony appearance at Buckingham Palace. The Business Secretary is asking energy suppliers to stop forcing financially stretched households to switch to prepayment meters. Grant Shapps says he'll name and shame the worst offenders. The Met Office says freezing fog will create dangerous driving conditions across much of England this morning. The haze will be so thick that visibility could drop as low as 50 metres in some places. There are also warnings the weather could exacerbate air pollution in London. In sport, Everton manager Frank Lampard's vowed to keep fighting and says he doesn't fear being sacked from his job. Pressure has grown on Lampard after their 2-0 defeat to fellow Premier League strugglers West Ham. World tennis number one, Iga Swiatek, is out of the Australian Open. She lost in straight sets to Elena Rybakina in the last 16 in Melbourne. She says she needs to take a break.
It was just tough, but for sure I need to work on my kind of mindset and fight a little bit more as I did last season. So for sure I'm going to take time.
That's the latest. I'm Daisy Steele.
On hold to your bank. That lovely music. Waiting for a friend. Who's late?
Oh, where is he?
Queuing for the bathroom. Nightmare. Waiting. Who needs it? With SEAT, you don't have to. Selected SEAT SUVs are in stock and available now. Live bolder. Live better. SEAT SUVs.
Limited stock of SEAT Ateca and Arona vehicles.
Winner of Radio Station of the Year at the Asian Media Awards 2022.
Leica Radio, London.
Leica Radio weather.
Today's weather, sunny intervals and light winds. In London and surrounding areas, top temperature 3 centigrade. Sunset is at 4:32 p.m.
Yeah.
Leica Radio. Leica Radio.
Flight updates are brought to you by TravelUp.com. Flights, hotels and holidays.
Let's go for a flight update. All flights are as scheduled, but please check with your flight operators before heading to the airport.
Flight updates were brought to you by TravelUp.com. Lowest prices are guaranteed only when you book directly through TravelUp.com. Call 0207 580 5000. Flight updates were brought to you by TravelUp.com. Lowest prices are guaranteed only when you book directly through TravelUp.com. Call 0207 580 5000. Talking Points with Keith Vaz. Celebrating diversity. Leica, London.
Leica Radio.
Good morning and welcome to the 144th edition of Talking Points on Leica Radio with me, Keith Vaz. Thank you, Priyanka, for a great show. Happy birthday this week to Valenka Alamo, Mohamed Tahir and Wes Morgan, the captain of Leicester City when he raised the Premier League Cup. Let's go around the world to get some top news stories. Jacinda Ardern is quitting as the New Zealand Prime Minister ahead of this year's election, saying she no longer has enough in the tank to lead. Miss Ardern choked up as she detailed how 6 challenging years in the job had taken a toll. Isn't it interesting? And a politician actually giving up power voluntarily. President Macron of France's reform packages face a make-or-break moment as the French Union stage a mass of strikes and protests on Thursday against his plans to push back the age of retirement. A new bill due to go through Parliament will raise the official age at which people can stop work from 62 to 64. More strikes are planned, so maybe you might want to give Paris a miss. Almost 4 years after the Marvel movies were banned from China, they have returned to the box office, prompting massive scenes of joy. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever arrives on the 7th of February, followed by Ant-Man and the Wasp 2 weeks later. They will be the first Marvel films to play in China since Spider-Man as way back as July 2019. In our Inventor series, let's ask the question, who invented the spectacle? One of the first recorded pair of spectacles made was in 1284 by Salvino da Marti in Italy. The lenses were made of glass or a crystal-like stone with a handle to hold them up to your eyes, scissor glass frames, and later Laurentget glasses. If, like me, you wear specs, just respect them. They are 739 years old this year. On the programme today, we'll be going over to India and then to Leicester. My first special guest on the programme is Manash Firak Bhattacharjee, a poet, writer, translator and political science scholar. He's the author of the new critically acclaimed book, Nehru and the Spirit of India. He writes regularly for many newspapers all over the world, including The Wire. He has taught lyric poetry and literary journalism at Ambedkar University, New Delhi. From India, we go over to Leicester for my second special guest on the programme today, who is Nita Prakash Hinducha, a qualified medical secretary and social worker who does an enormous amount of work for the local community. She came from Tanzania at the age of 14 and moved to London in 1971. She's worked as a consultant pathologist at Westminster Medical School, but more important than all that, she's president of the Lawana community in Leicester, and she'll be talking to us about women's empowerment. Quite a packed show. But before all that, let's hear some music.
जैसे धूल उड़ा के सींग उठा के तुम भी नाचो बाज जम के ताल ढोल बेटा राजू उड़ के नाचो हीरो से भी तेज कोई कर सके जो बेद नाचो अस्तबल में घोड़े जैसे भाग डोर छोड़ नाचो मिट्टी जो तो रोट मोटा मिर्च खा के ऐसे नाचो हाँ जा छोरे हाँ जा गोरे हाँ जा छोरे नाचो 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 वीर नाचो 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 यार नाचो 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 कच्ची कैरी जैसा खट्टा नाचो 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 बिच्छू काटा लागे ऐसा नाचो देखो धंधना के रोगी नाचे शोर सुन लो है धमाका जैसे शेर हाथी नाचे देखो दिल का ये मेला यारा अपने साथ नाचो एड़ियों के जोरों पे तुम धड़ाका देसी नाचो पसीना माथे का चमके दमके ऐसे नाचो हाँ जा छोरे हाँ जा गोरे हाँ जा छोरे नाचो 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 वीर नाचो 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 यार नाचो 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 आगो नाचो नाचो उसने चक्का लागे तीखा नाचो झूमे गाँव है रेला ऊंचा पाँव यूं पटका है ये देसी मेला कैसा रहा यकायकी नाचो 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 धूम थिरके जा पाँव में जान जगा धुमक धुमक नाचे जा दुनिया हिला दे सारी नाचो 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 नाचो
Talking Points with Keith Vaz, celebrating diversity. Leica, London.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I hope you enjoyed the music. After the phenomenal success of Prince Harry's book, Spare, let's crisscross the world and talk about another book which is gaining critical acclaim in India. It's about India's first Prime Minister, Nehru. My special guest on the programme is Manash Virak Bhattacharjee, a poet, writer, translator and political science scholar from the Nehru University in New Delhi. He is the author of Nehru and the Spirit of India, which has just been published. He's also written other books on life and culture during the lockdown, Looking for the Nation, Towards Another Idea of India, and Ghalib's Tomb and other poems. His writings, apart from regular contributions to The Wire, have appeared in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Review of Books, Guernica, World Literature Today, the Fortnightly Review, and The Hindu and the Indian Express. He's taught lyric poetry and literary journalism at Ambedkar University in New Delhi. Let's go over to New Delhi, the capital of India, and talk to Manash Virak Bhattacharjee. Good afternoon, Manash.
Good afternoon, Keith. It's really great to reconnect with you after meeting you briefly in Goa in that lovely bookstore.
But you're now in the cold of Delhi. I can remember from my visit a week ago that it's actually quite cold out there. So I hope you're as warm as we are here in Canary Wharf. Now, Manash, you hold a doctorate in political science, which you gained very early in your life. Do you think that academic teaching has moulded you into your current outlook on Indian politics?
Thank you, Keith. Yes, my studying political science in JNU gave me perspective on the social and cultural motivations of India's political actors, and also what are the historical political nature of people's demands in this country, our sense of rights, our sense of political values. And so as a political science student and as a MPhil and PhD scholar, I learned, so to say, the broader history and the story of Indian politics and how, in fact, our history of anti-colonial struggle, the anti-colonial movement and the various strands of that movement really shaped what the politics of the country, became after independence.
You will probably know this from the fact that you have lots of friends in the UK. The Indian community, though it's settled here over several generations, is still fascinated by the politics of India. It's probably more fascinated by India than it is about our own politics. Do you think that interest is going to remain in the future? I mean, people in India aren't that interested, are they, about the politics of the UK, except when you have, for example, an Indian origin prime minister being elected. Then there's a great deal of interest. But by and large, it's a one-way traffic here, isn't it?
Well, yes, I think it is natural in a way for migrants to be connected to the politics of their country because their mind is in many ways related to what's happening back there. And even though life in a new country takes over, but there are a lot of, I guess, historical reasons which runs through our veins, which runs through the veins of the migrant community in the UK. And with so much actually story there in Indian politics and the very history of this politics, which is so contentious, which is always so full of vibrancy, and something or the other always keeps happening. So I guess to be glued to the story of Indian politics is but quite natural for people, who belong to India, but living in the UK and even other parts of the world to sort of have their continuing interest in that very unfolding story of India's political, future.
We're going to come back very shortly and talk about your book and how that fits in to the rainbow discussion of politics that exists in India. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I'm having a very interesting discussion with Manash Virak Bhattacharjee about his literary work. We're going to come and talk to him about his poetry, but more than that, we're going to talk to him about India's first Prime Minister after the break. Join us shortly.
बेफिक्रे उड़े दिल बेफिक्रे अंगारों में निकले उड़े दिल बेफिक्रे रात भर झूमेंगे आसमां घूमेंगे चांदिए झूमेंगे तारों के मारेंगे फेरे उड़े दिल बेफिक्रे उड़े दिल बेफिक्रे अंगारों में निकले उड़े दिल बेफिक्रे सनसना जाए सांसें जगमगा जाए आंखें मिलते 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 ही डगमगा खनखना हड़बड़ा जाए सांसें तड़पड़ा जाए बाहें मिलते 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 ही आग के ढेले हैं बर्फ के ढेले हैं बाज पे खेले हैं थोड़े थोड़े दिल के टुकड़े उड़े दिल बेफिक्रे उड़े दिल बेफिक्रे
Caratino Better Ghee, the healthier, low-cost, cholesterol-free butter ghee alternative. Caratino Better Ghee, available at Tesco, Asda, Morrison's and local grocery stores.
Hi, my name is Mariam. I have used a wheelchair for about 9 years. I don't know where I would be without my amazing care worker, Jessica. Every day at home, she helps me feel more and more like myself and like I have control of my life.
My name's Jessica and I love my job working with Mariam. Every day is different. You're there for support, not just physically but mentally as well. It's a really fulfilling job and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Search Care Careers now for a job made with understanding, made with teamwork, made with care.
MantraHolidays.co.uk presents 2023 Travel Destination Catalogue. Paris from only £249. Switzerland from only £555. With great Indian food and Schengen visa services available. Call 020 3773 6333. That's 020 3773 6333. MantraHolidays.co.uk.
नमस्ते, मैं डॉक्टर सूद हूँ। अगर आपको लगे कि आपके शरीर में कोई गड़बड़ी है, तो हमसे बात कीजिए। हो सकता है कैंसर होने का डर आपके दिमाग में हो, पर कैंसर की जांच के अधिकांश नतीजे कैंसर नहीं निकलते। जल्दी पता करना हमेशा बेहतर होता है। नतीजा जो भी हो, आपका NHS आपके लिए है। अपने GP प्रैक्टिस से संपर्क कीजिए।
When I wrote my will, I looked after my family first, but then I added one last wish to help Marie Curie be there for people with a terminal illness, like my husband Fred, to help others like him get the end-of-life care they desperately need.
Please help Marie Curie give more people their last wish by adding one last wish to your will. We can even help you write it for free. Search Marie Curie Wills now.
Every household will get help with energy bills this winter. The UK government is giving you an extra £400 towards your bills. For most households, payments are automatic. If you're on a traditional prepayment meter, you'll receive vouchers. You will also get even more help with your bills with the Energy Price Guarantee. Find out more at gov.uk/help for households today.
Hira Foods, bringing you authentic Eastern flavours with a huge selection of products including spices, grains, lentils, rice, flours, pickles, sauces, nuts and ready-to-eat meals. Hira Foods, king in quality, king in taste.
The personalities that matter with Keith Vaz on Talking Points.
Leica Radio.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I'm talking to Manash Firak Bhattacharjee, poet, writer, translator, and a political science scholar. He's just published a book on Nehru, which has won critical acclaim in India. Manash, the book on Nehru, why did you write this? Because there are hundreds of books written about Nehru. This is another one. I mean, people obviously have been delighted to read it, but why Nehru?
Well, because I have been associated with Nehru's work since my work on Nehru in my MPhil and my PhD, where I looked at Nehru's ideas of nationalism and on other issues related to Indian politics. And so my familiarity goes back to those days. And what I realized while going through the literature of works on Nehru, that there are certain complexities, ambiguities, paradoxes in Nehru which have not been really addressed very well, or at least to my satisfaction, by earlier writers. And so I wanted to address all of that, and also to remind our Indian readers that we probably need to study Nehru again, because a lot of very simplified and often very crude sort of understanding of Nehru, both as a political thinker and as a political leader, are out there in the public sphere. So I thought I wanted to really, address these questions in the public sphere and write this book on Nehru.
Now, we are in the age not of Nehru, we are in the age of Modi. There's no question of that. If you arrive at any airport, as I did very recently, the dominance of the Prime Minister is very obvious, preparing for one of the biggest events in the history of India, which is the G20 summit. Hazard a guess. Okay, there was no social media at the time of Nehru, of course, and Modi undoubtedly is one of the stars of Indian social media. If there was a contest between these two giants in India today, who would win?
That's a tricky question to really imagine and answer, and I wouldn't like to hazard it really, but to just go by the spirit of your question, I would say that, it is not just about how long Nehru ruled as the Prime Minister of the country, but it is also how long Nehru has been in the minds of the people. Modi, of course, rules India right now, and he's quite a popular leader of the country. And yet I would say that, that Nehru is not just about the number of years that he ruled India, but also many, many decades till date of his being part of India's or Indian people's imagination. So it would take many decades, after Modi's rule to see how much of that happens. And to come back to the question about what would happen now if there was a contest, well, your guess or my guess is, as good or as bad as the vagaries of the Indian electoral system. But I would still say that I'm sure it'll be a good fight nevertheless.
You are speaking like a true commentator in that you're not calling the election between Nehru and Modi. A good answer. Let me ask you finally, because poetry is very much a part of your life, apart from political science and all these books you've written and all these articles that you've contributed to so many different magazines and news outlets. Why poetry? What inspired you to write poetry?
So poetry, I picked up in high school when I had fallen in love with a classmate, and it was quite automatic. I didn't know how to write poetry when I started writing poetry. I guess it comes automatically to a young boy who is trying to put his feelings on paper. So in that sense, poetry is, our most intimate relationship with language. It connects the heart to language and pretty much also moves, in its line breaks and in its own grammar, something that helps us to structure our own feelings in language. So poetry for me has been simply that,
Manash Faraq Bhattacharjee, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us today. Good luck with your book. Let's see if it can sell as many as Prince Harry's. But I'm not sure. Have you actually done an audio version of this? Or is it just the written version of the book?
No, the audio version of the book I don't think has been done yet.
Well, there's an idea for you, which you got from Leica Radio. We always ask our special guests to choose a song that means something special to them and to dedicate it to someone special. Which song would you like to choose and to whom would you like to dedicate it to?
So there is a song which I often hum to myself and I'm willing to hum it a little bit right here, if you please. This is a song from the film Baaton Baaton Mein, and it's sung by my favorite singer of all times, Kishore Kumar, and it's written by the late lyricist Yogesh, music by Rajesh Roshan. I want it to be dedicated to everybody looking for hope in life.
Manash Faraq Bhattacharjee, poet, writer, translator and political science scholar, thank you for joining us today. We're going to hear you hum a little bit of this song before we hear the real version. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Keith, so much, and thank you for having me in this very lovely radio program. I'd like to convey my best wishes to all the listeners of Leica Radio.
So now, could we hear some of your humming?
Surely, thank you so much. Kahan tak ye man ko अंधेरे छलेंगे उदासी भरे दिन कभी तो ढलेंगे
कहाँ तक ये मन को अंधेरे चलेंगे उदासी भरे दिन कभी तो ढलेंगे सुख कभी दुख यही जिंदगी है ये पतझड़ का मौसम घड़ी दो घड़ी है ये पतझड़ का मौसम घड़ी दो घड़ी है नए फूल कल फिर डगर में खिलेंगे उदासी भरे दिन कभी तो ढलेंगे भले तेज कितना हवा का हो झोंका मगर अपने मन में तू रख ये भरोसा मगर अपने मन में तू रख ये भरोसा जो बिछड़े सफर में तुझे फिर मिलेंगे उदासी भरे दिन कभी तो ढलेंगे कहे कोई कुछ भी मगर सच यही है लहर प्यार की जो कहीं उठ रही है लहर प्यार की जो कहीं उठ रही है उसे एक दिन तो किनारे मिलेंगे उदासी भरे दिन
कभी तो ढलेंगे कहाँ तक ये मन को अंधेरे चलेंगे उदासी भरे दिन कभी तो ढलेंगे
Keith Vaz on Talking Points. Leica.
Leica Radio.
Traffic and travel.
I'm Gary King at Wembley. The A404 on High Road, that is closed in both directions after a burst water main between the Bear traffic lights and St John's Road. At Acton, Gunnersbury Lane still closed southbound due to roadworks between the High Street and Acton High School. And on London's Underground, minor delays on the Metropolitan line, and that's all due to earlier signalling problems at Neasden. And that's the latest traffic and travel.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Most wonderful time.
Book now and get free airport fast track with On the Beach. See terms and conditions outbound only, subject to availability at all protected.
On the beach. This is Leica Radio.
सस्ती से सस्ती फ्लाइट्स और हॉलिडे पैकेज चाहिए तो 24 घंटे 7 दिन किसी भी समय ट्रैवल हब का नंबर मिलाइए फॉर क्रूज टेलर मेड हॉलिडे होटल बुकिंग्स एंड हनीमून पैकेजेस हमसे सस्ता कहीं नहीं मिल सकता कॉल ट्रैवल हब 24/7 और 0208-782-8833 और विजिट travelhubltd.co.uk.
Travel Hub, best service with unbeatable price.
At all protected.
Visit travelhubltd.co.uk.
Haldiram brings you the most loved Indian sweets which are freshly made in UK. Now order your favorite Haldiram products online only on haldiramuk.com. Also available at your local Asian store at super special prices.
This is a message for every household in the UK. Everyone is entitled to government help with the cost of living. At gov.uk/help for households, you'll find over 40 different support schemes in one place. From help with energy bills to childcare costs, housing, transport, and more. Help is available now for every household. See what you're eligible for at gov.uk/help for households.
ये बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर
आधुनिक भारत तो तब बनेगा जब देश में समानता हो
बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर के सामाजिक आदर्शों को जानने के लिए
देखिए राजकुमार संतोषी की नई फिल्म गांधी गोट से एक युद्ध 26 जनवरी 2023 अपने नजदीकी सिनेमाघरों में
Hello and namaskar. मैं हूँ बाली ब्रह्मट with my show Gold Afternoons Monday to Friday 1 to 4 p.m. full of retro Bollywood music, masti and tributes. Atto prem che, prem che, prem che, prem che.
Bali Brahmbat on Gold Afternoons is sponsored by Elliot's Shah Chartered Accountants. Call Elliot's Shah Chartered Accountants on 0207 632 0300. Talking Points with Keith Vaz, celebrating diversity. Leica, London.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. From India, let's go on to Leicester. My special guest on the program today is Nita Prakashin Ducha, a qualified medical secretary and social worker. Nita was born and brought up in Mwanza in Tanzania until the age of 14 and then moved to London. She worked as a personal assistant for a consultant pathologist at Westminster Medical School for 3 years and then moved into community work in London. She worked as a trained family and marriage counsellor, an agony aunt from 1987 to 1998 and was a freelancer agony aunt for the Leicester Mercury for 9 years. From 1996 to 2006, she owned and managed care homes, specialising in dementia care, past and present substance abuse and mental health for the elderly. She's currently a director of the Healthcare Recruitment Agency and also the president of the Lawana Mahajan in Leicester. Let's go to Leicester and talk to Nita Hinducha. Good morning, Nita.
Good morning, Keith.
Now, before we get on to your big event on the 1st of April, which is a women's empowerment event, which I'm sure many of our listeners are going to want to be attending, let's talk about your early career. You started as a medical secretary, but you then went on and did a lot of charity work. How did you make that happen?
Well, I did a lot of community work. I started as a medical secretary, as you said, but being stuck behind a closed door wasn't my cup of tea, I realized. I needed to be with and work with people. I was a part of a youth league in South London, and I felt that I needed to work at a level where I could communicate and interact with people and communities. So I moved from secretarial to community work.
And while you were doing community work, you became a very good listener and are known as the second Asian agony aunt in Britain. And you did this for 9 years. It must have been quite an interesting experience giving advice to others.
Very. It was an extremely beneficial, useful experience, not just for myself, but I feel also for the community. I managed and coordinated an Asian counseling service in Leicestershire as well for 13 years. So I was exposed to a lot of, but it was a very, very fulfilling role, both as an agony aunt writer and as a counselor providing one-to-one service.
And was it difficult for people to come and talk to you about what were very personal issues? We know our community. We're not very happy about people knowing our business, are we? How did you get people to open up and tell you about their problems?
I think initially a bit of publicity was done, not much, but keeping it at a low profile. And then word of mouth took over. Plus, one of the things the management committee of this counseling service was fantastic at ensuring that our location was in such a place that people couldn't be seen to be just coming for counseling and so forth. So I was based in community-based organization. Then I was based as part of Age Concern Leicester in a little cottage outside the main building. So people were, coming in and out, so people couldn't see that they were going in for counseling. So there was a lot of community traffic around those premises.
Right. Finally, in this part of the interview, tell me one takeaway about the biggest problem that you had to deal with. What was the most common, not necessarily the biggest, but the most common problem that people came to you to ask for your advice on?
Domestic violence.
Really?
I felt that and related mental health issues. I was surprised myself, though being around the community, working within the society, I was surprised at the extent and level of abuse that was taking place. So I felt quite overwhelmed by what was going on, but luckily our training was excellent and, we were able to enhance and promote our services.
This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I'm having a very interesting conversation with Nita Hinducha, qualified medical secretary turned social worker, agony aunt, and now a big supporter of women's empowerment. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about her big event, which is going to take place on the 1st of April this year. Join us in a few moments.
चिंगारियां ये जो मेरे सीने में है दफन इनको जरा देखे हवा बन जाऊं मैं अगन चिंगारियां ये जो मेरे
Keith Vaz on Talking Points. Leica.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I'm talking to Nita Hinduja, the director of the Healthcare Recruitment Agency and president of the Luhana Mandal in Leicester. Nita, we've talked about your journey in becoming a social worker and then moving on to other things. You are a firm believer in girls' power. Tell me, is this something that's always been with you, or is this a recent phenomenon in the community?
No, I think it's always been there. So, women issues and girls issues. I mean, generally, societal issues have always been there.
But in community work, I mean, obviously, the Luhana community is a very big community, and many people think it's run by men. But of course, it isn't, because you have your women's section, and lots of women go to it. How do you encourage young women in particular to be part of the movement that you and others have created?
Though it's supposed to be women's organizations as well, I think until and unless we have the full autonomy, we have the full decision-making powers, it's always going to be a male-dominated society we live in. And I personally don't think that's really moved on much. So we need to empower women, and I think particularly homemakers, who majority are female, to try and encourage the youngsters to go out into the field, different fields, various fields, and they don't necessarily have to go to university. Any kind of field that they're compassionate about, to achieve in that field and succeed, regardless of the ceilings that are visible or invisible that are there. Because a lot of time I find that it is very difficult to try and get away from the stereotypical images or notions we have about women and their role. So young women, I find particularly, need a lot of encouragement to stay within the community and flourish within that community. They need to be given that autonomy and that platform to function as individuals and as women.
Now, you've got a very important event planned for a few weeks' time. It's on the 1st of April 2023, and you are hosting that event. What's the purpose of the event, and how are you going to encourage people to be part of it? How can people turn up and attend this event?
There's 6 women in our Mahila committee. So together we are planning at a planning stage where one of the aim is to get women from different sections of the society, not just from the Luhana Mahajan or Luhana community, but different society, by having an entertainment section as well, but by getting in prominent speakers who have actually done a lot of good work within the community. So we've got, like, for example, we are negotiating with the president of the Law Society, Rita Patel, who's a prominent community worker and now a politician as well. But we are not going to go into the politics of it, but it's about getting speakers from different fields to come and talk about their journeys, their experiences, and how it can encourage and network with other young women, particularly within the community, to maybe follow their footpaths or whatever, or even if we are able to create a mentoring service where, these young girls or even women of any age can go up to them and say, this is what I want to do, how do I go about it? So it's essentially about getting speakers from different sections and doing networking and empowering women that, look, yes, these are the kind of women that exist and survive in our community and yet live within the community. They are not outside of the community. Within the community, so many women have achieved so much.
Nita Hinduja, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure as a result of what you said to Leica Radio today, we'll have lots of women attending your event, which will be taking place on the 1st of April 2023. Now, we always ask our special guests to choose a song that means something to them and to dedicate it to someone special. And whom would you like to dedicate it to?
My favorite song is Mai Teri Chunariya from the film Gulal. And I'd like to dedicate it to all the women, and especially my mother and mother-in-law.
It's very interesting because we've had a dedication earlier on to all the people who have hope, which is, of course, the whole world. And now we've got a dedication to all the women in the world, which is around about 3.5 billion. But you mentioned 2 in particular. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have not only a great Sunday, but a great event on the 1st of April.
Thank you, Keith, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure, and I hope all the listeners, all the best, and all goes well. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's hear Nita Hinducha's song.
जीना जीना रे उड़ा गुलाल माही तेरी चुनरिया लहराए जीना 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 रे उड़ा गुलाल माही तेरी चुनरिया लहराए रंग तेरी रीत का रंग तेरी प्रीत का रंग तेरी जीत का है जब मुझ पे उठा सवाल मारी तेरी चुनरिया लहराई जीना जीना रे उड़ा गुलाल माही तेरी चुनरिया लहराई जग से हारा नहीं मैं खुद से हारा हूँ माँ एक दिन चमकूंगा लेकिन तेरा सितारा हूँ माँ माई रे तेरे बिन मैं तो अधूरा रहा माई रे मुझसे ही रूठी मेरी परछाई ओ मेरी परछाई तेरा ख्याल मारी तेरी चुनरिया लहराए जीना 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 रे उड़ा गुलाल माही तेरी चुनरिया लहराए रंग तेरी रीत का रंग तेरी प्रीत का रंग तेरी जीत का है लाई 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 रंग तेरी रीत का रंग तेरी प्रीत का माही तेरी चुनरिया लहराए जब जब मुझ पे उठा सवाल मारी तेरी चुनरिया लहराए जीना जीना रे उड़ा गुलाल माही तेरी चुनरिया लहराए
My name is Michael and I've been a care worker with Stephen for 12 years now. It's been brilliant to support him to enjoy a more independent life. So much so that now he's helping others with learning disabilities.
My name is Stephen. I now coach other people with autism. I don't think I would have the confidence without Michael's support.
You just really admire how he's grown as a person over these years.
Search Care Careers now for a job made with understanding, made with teamwork, made with care.
As the cost of living is rising, your earnings need to do as well. SBI UK has got great news for your savings. SBI UK Instant Access Savings Account can earn you 1.7% with flexible access of your deposits. And if you go for fixed deposits, then your savings can earn you up to 4.35%. Terms and conditions apply. For more details, visit sbiuk.com. SBI UK is serving its customers in the UK for over 100 years now. SBI UK is regulated by the FCA and PRA.
WH Foundation and Trident Communications presents a grand fashion show with live performance by Bollywood singer Shahid Malia. On Saturday, 28th of January at Osterley Park Hotel with dinner and DJ entertainment, Bollywood dance, exhibition and much more, hosted by Kajal from Leica Gold Radio. Book your tickets on Eventbrite or call 07543 633 486. Media partners Leica Gold and Leica Radio.
The one thing COVID did give us, digital transformation. If you're serious about digital growth and would like a tactical approach to your digital marketing, then remember the name Harty Hanks. With over 20 years experience and a proven track record, we have the talent and know-how to deliver online success. Harty Hanks, experts in consultancy, branding, design, e-commerce, search and social. Call Harty Hanks today on 020 8827 1600 or visit hhdigital.uk. Harty Hanks, your partners for digital success.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jeeves Vijay Surya. Over the winter, viruses can spread and cause greater harm. If you are aged 50 or over, pregnant or at higher risk, for example, because of a health condition, it's not too late to get your NHS COVID-19 and flu vaccines. Vaccines protect you and your loved ones against serious illness. Book yours today by calling 119 or online at www.nhs.uk/winter vaccinations.
Hira Foods, bringing you authentic Eastern flavors with a huge selection of products including spices, grains, lentils, rice, flours, pickles, sauces, nuts, and ready-to-eat meals. Hira Foods, king in quality, king in taste.
The personalities that matter with Keith Vaz on Talking Points.
Leica Radio.
Time's up for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's program. I think the iconic video footage of the week was a meetab, the greater meetab in the Middle East, shaking the hands of Messi and Ronaldo before that very famous game between Al Nassr and PSG. What a surprise to see him there. My thanks this week to Manash Firak Bhattacharjee, Nita Prakash Hinducha for joining us today. Special thanks to my researcher Shridullah, my producer Reena, and editor Adam. To end today's program, we'll be listening to one of Shah Rukh Khan's hit songs, Chamak Chalo, which has already had 169 million viewers on YouTube. Please stay tuned for the wonderful Sheena, who follows the news on Leica Radio at 10 o'clock. We are Britain's greatest Asian radio station. This has been Talking Points on Leica Radio with Keith Vaz, broadcasting from London. I hope you have a great Sunday.
Girl, you're my chamakachalo. Where you go, girl, I'm gonna follow. What you want, girl, just let me know. You can be my chamakachalo. Shawty, I'm gonna get ya. You know I'm gonna get ya. You know I'll even let you be my chamakachalo. Yes, I sharmana aja nachte dikhane. Ameri hole aja pari da girane. Ameri yakkiyon se yakkiyon milane. Haruna nakkire dikha. Wanna be my chamakachalo. Wanna be my chamakachalo. Wanna be my chamakachalo. Wanna be my chamakachalo. चमक चमक चलो कैसा शर्माना आजा नच के दिखा दे आ मेरी होले आजा पारी दा गिरा दे आ मेरी अखियों से अखियां मिला दे हारूना नखरे दिखा wanna be my चमक चलो 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 कैसा शर्माना तुझे नच के दिखा दूं मेरा बुझाए जो मैं पर्दा गिरा दूं हाँ तुझे अखियों में अपने बसा लूं हाँ तुम नखरे दिखा London's biggest station hits like a radio like a radio
Across London on 1458 AM and DAB, smart speaker, mobile app and LikerRadio.com.